Like I said, I've never used that yet, so I don't know what it's going to do. Well, the lights will probably go out.
Bang!
Why do you keep doing that, you wanker? You absolute wanker. It's not funny when you blow the horn, and I wonder... It's not funny when I have to cut an electrical cord and you come up behind me, you wanker.
Turn it on. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to work.
It works fine.
Is it working?
It seems to be working fine. The element is probably just getting warm.
Well, there we go. What are you jumping about, for fuck's sake? God. We have done it. We decided not to weld a panel, we just cable tied it. We have the radiator sitting there. We've done it in what? 30 seconds?
These extenders are for if anyone gets close to me on the racetrack,
yeah,
I can scrape their paint.
Yeah.
And therefore they won't get too close to me, like, you know.
And also it's for rally spectators, it's a safety margin, so you know not to stand too close when you're coming. Because otherwise they'll get, you know, their ankles, well, their kneecaps capped. So there we go, we did it in seconds, everybody. See you later. Hello and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. Right, we have done a little bit of work, but not too much. We have put the radiator in the position Brian wants. It's not in the standard place, as you can see. It's completely different because we wanted to move it away from the 4-branch manifold and just have a little bit more room and move it further out. Because we're welding this space frame on, we can actually do that. So we're now going to build our frame off this to suit our radiator. Now, we haven't written anything down, we haven't drawn anything, we're just kind of, you know, going as we go, basically. We've had a few more ideas and we finally stuck with an idea that we think is going to work for what we particularly need. So what we're going to do is we're going to weld the plates we made the other day, we're going to tack them on. We're also making new plates for here, which we never was. We were just going to triangle it from down here, but then we said, like, let's make a plate there and bring up the top of our bars across here to the two chassis legs or to the two strut towers and actually get a little bit more strength, and it's just going to not rely on hanging all off the two legs. And then another thing we want to be doing is getting the new welder sorted. So we got the new bottle of gas, wherever that is, under there I think, but that's not for what we're needing for the minute, that's just for another project. We're using this bottle of gas and we're using the new Fronius welder, which, if you're not two muppets like me and Brian, is really easy to work. But when you put it on the wrong setting and figuring out why it's not working.
I mean, there is an idiot section for
yeah.
this welder, and we couldn't work the idiot section. You know,
yeah,
so.
And this welder is so simple to use, and we couldn't. Anyway, it is actually very simple to use. What we're doing, we're using a synergic setting. So in other words, I will just turn it off, and I'll go through everything with you, so you basically know what we are doing is. We are using normal MIG gas, a bottle of gas. We need to tell it what gas we're using. We need to tell it what thickness of metal we're using. And we need to tell it what thickness of wire we are using. So all we do, we come to here, we go to Synergic. There we go, Synergic. Now we've got the steel wire, which is what we're using. So let me just scroll down. I imagine it wasn't on there. So we've got the steel wire, so we need to go to steel wire. Oh, gone past it. We're using 0.8, so again you just press this button and you can scroll down for what thicknesses you want to actually use. So we're using 0.8, we just put this back to steel, and then we're using the mixed gas for the MIG. And then what we need to do, very simple, is we just go along and we tell it what thickness. This is the thickness here, and you can scroll through amperage and wire speed, so you can actually set it yourself, but it'll do it all automatically. So we set the thickness. So if we just set it at 1 mil, we'll see what the amperage is there and the wire speed. And then if we set it to 1.5, you'll see, look, it's changed. We set it to 2 mil. And as you can see, look, it's automatically changing it all for you. So what did we say, 2 mil? And there we go, bang, we are ready to weld. It's going to do absolutely everything for us, the wire speed, the amperage, the arc, absolutely everything. It's going to set it all up for us. All we've got to do is actually weld it. So we're going to tack these plates on first, and then we're going to build our first bar coming around. But you can see just how easy this machine is. We have been practicing with it a little bit, just making sure. You can go manual mode, and there's loads of different settings on this. I am going to be going through this a lot better when I'm restoring the Citroen, because this is a MIG, it's a stick, it's a TIG, and I'm actually going to be doing brazing with this, with the MIG wire, so that I can actually braze with this, which brings down the temperature. It doesn't warp the panels. It has its advantages and disadvantages, but I'm going to be showing lots of stuff with this. This has a really cool stitch mode. So when you're stitching a big panel together, especially on a door, let's say, on a classic car, you can't just, you know, run a big stitch. Even if you could, you're going to warp the hell out the door. What this will do, this will actually allow me to pulse it. So in other words, I can set it, whether I set it for half a second on or off, 2 seconds on or off, 3 seconds on or off. So I just keep the trigger pressed, and it will just keep whatever time I've set it. Now, when I'm doing brass welding, or not welding, it's actually brazing, I can essentially run a big long stitch, because I'm just stitching it together and the machine's turning itself off. But what the really cool thing is, it keeps the gas turned on, so it doesn't turn the gas on, so you get the full shielding all the time, which is absolutely perfect. But we were using a different gas for that, and essentially that's the gas there, that's the full argon gas that we'll be using if we're brazing, but not for welding. You can use it for welding, but we're not. So there we go. Once we've used this for a few minutes, we're going to see, well, we're going to get Brian's opinion on it, because Brian...
We're going to edit the video to make it look like we're awesome.
Well, that's what editing is always for. I mean, what do you think we do with editing?
We didn't spend the last 2 hours, you know, unboxing it and looking around and pressing buttons, you know. We just, we went straight, immediate welding. Yeah.
So what we're going to do is, it was just, what we did, it was my fault. I just had it on the wrong, bottle. I don't know why I thought I had it on the right bottle. That was the only issue. Anyway, Brian has done... He's not. Brian has done a lot of welding.
I set it on manual mode and I was able to weld.
Brian's done a lot of welding for his jobs. He's done a few welding jobs, but if he thinks he's a better welder than me, the thing is, he's done more than one welding job, and he's done more than one welding job. So after the boss has seen his welding, he's got fired. That's why he's done more than one welding job. But anyway, so what he's done is, he's used to welding big things all day long. Well, I'm obviously a lot more used to welding, you know, cars and everything all day. Well, not all day long, but I'm more used to it. So Brian is going to see what he thinks of this welder after he's used it for a while, and how easy it is to use, and how it basically welds. So we're going to get a few things tacked in and a few bars bent, and then we'll turn the camera back on. Right, the other really cool thing is, if you're unhappy with the settings that it does it itself, you can actually tweak it. So in other words, I can go to the amps, and I can slightly tweak them amps if I want. If I'm just unhappy with the way that I think it should be welding or shouldn't be welding, for example, if you just want the wire speed that little bit bigger, that little bit thicker, you can actually tweak it yourself, which is really quite handy. Same with the voltage, same with the arc, same with absolutely everything. So that's actually kind of handy to know. Bumper, hillbilly style. Look at this bumper, completely and utterly twisted. In every sense of the word. There you go, look. You can really see just how twisted this is. Oh, it's not a road car. Look how twisted that bumper is. So all I'm going to do is literally heat it up with the heater, and we'll twist it back for the rally car. Look what I've managed to do.
I honestly didn't expect that. I thought it was just going to dick around in front of the heater for, you know, for straightening purposes.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's what the heater is for. It wasn't for me to get me warm. It was honestly to straighten the bumper. Look at that. Now, I think I just need to stand near the heater for another 3 hours just to make sure that bumper settles properly.
I'm pissed off. You care more about your community than you do our car.
Yeah, because they're actually nice people, unlike you. When you weld captive nuts to anything, what you need to do is first you need to screw the actual bolt into it first. And then what you might have to do, and it's no harm doing anyway, is run the tap through, because when you're heating these up, you know, the metal does funny things. You could get a bit of crap in there, and it can just sometimes pull the threads quite tight. So always just run a tap through, and then when you actually come to screw your bolts in properly, you're not going to have an issue. If you don't, you could just rip the threads out of the bolt or the nut. But this now is a screw. It's not a bolt or a nut, it's a screw.
I'd like to add what Leon is doing right now is saving me from the embarrassment of showing the weld. So for people who don't know what captive nuts are, so the nuts are on the other side and they're welded, so, and you put the bolt through. But of course Leon didn't want to turn over the plate there to show my iffy welding. Cut me some slack, I'm only getting used to this welder.
That's the worst thing you're gonna do now.
I suppose, yeah.
I will. Do you know what I do?
There's a galvanized coating.
There is a galvanized coating which we didn't take out. But what I might do is I might, you know when you get someone like from the SAS and they blur out the face, I might blur out that.
Yeah. Blur it out.
Blur it out. Yeah.
Blur it out.
So this is beautiful welds, people. It's just my camera just doesn't focus on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's it. But once we get everything set up, and we're also using recycled metal, we're using what we've got. We're using metal from here, which isn't great. So we're recycling what we've got. We're using what we've got.
I know. On the other side of your monitor, you're saying, "Oh yeah, typical excuses. Yeah, I don't care.
I mean, how could you care? I mean, when you look like you do, how could you care?
I'm going to weld up my car, and we're going to have a chassis, the tubular chassis on the front of my car. I don't really care that much, If you comment on how bad my welding is, I'm not going to take it personally. If you comment how bad a rally driver I am, come on, let's fucking let's get all our clothes off right now and put on a onesie and have it out, a green onesie. Have it out right now.
That's not a fight, Brian. That's your kink. Brian's into Teletubbies. You know that weird Teletubbies porn hub thing? That's what Brian's into.
Hey, you said too much.
So yeah, but you'll see a lot better welding very soon when I start welding. And
you will, yeah.
Yeah, we will. And
so that's Irish for you won't.
And yeah, so basically, like I said, this is what we're building. Now, I'm not going off I don't write anything down. We've basically gone through 3 or 4 different variants, and we're coming to the one that we think is going to work for us. I don't draw anything down. I don't write anything down. I just basically use my head. We've got the radiator in place, and then we're just going to mock it up from there. I'll show you kind of step by step and once it's done. But what we're going to do now is we're going to weld these plates in, and we're going to build our first bend. Right, we are at the most crucial stage now. We have to get the bumper in exactly the right position because we're building our bar to our bumper. What I mean by that is, forget the radiator. The radiator is twisted at the minute, so don't worry about the radiator. We've got our 2 plates just tacked in. Look at them lovely tacks. That welder is beautiful. And we need to work our bar and our first bend off the bumper. Get it as close or inside the bumper as possible, because we don't want it too close to the radiator. We can run tabs from the bar to the radiator, because we need this as our crash barrier. So if we had it running right next to the radiator, well, the first tip is just going to smash the radiator. So the fact that we can run the bar, I'm not sure where exactly yet, but say here, we're a good 8 inches away from the radiator, which means we can basically crash this before it hits the radiator, because as soon as it hits the radiator, you're out. Worst case scenario, just replace these bars, not the end of the world. So we need to get this bumper now 100% in the right place and work off the bumper with our first bar. And like I said, I don't write anything down. I know what I need and I know what I want to do. And Brian's just going to say yes because he's got no choice, and we're just going to work from there. And you'll see the frame once we actually build it. But the fact that we've got these welded in now, just tacked in, we're going to obviously run seams across there. We can build off that, and it's going to be great. Very, very important to tap all the holes. Tap all the holes, yeah? Right?
It's a pretty monumentous occasion. That.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, I know. Trying to ignore what you're here.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to do the spring back. It's very, very simple. You need to set up a bend on the material you are using, but make sure you do not bend it any more than 90 degrees. So you can use anything, but don't go any more than 90 degrees. We happen to go 90 degrees on this one. And again, it depends on the thickness of the steel and what type of steel you're using. You need some sort of digital square. And all you basically do is, just going to have to get Brian to come here a second. Hold the camera for me. Right, what we need to do is, you need to come around here. We need to get the square set along both edges. Don't worry about this, just get it nice and flat along both edges and look at your measurement, which is 92.6 degrees. Can you see that?
Yep.
Can you see the flat along here?
Yep.
Right, so once it's flat along there, then what you do is 92.6 degrees, you get 180 and minus 92.6 degrees, and that's your true bend angle. What happens is when you bend anything, it always wants to spring back, and it will always spring back to a certain thing. Even though, to be fair, when we use it on this, you can see the spring back in action. We had to essentially bend it 92 degrees on here to get it to read 90 degrees on here, but that doesn't mean we've got a 90 degree bend. We've actually got a 97.4 degree bend on this. So, and again, if you go up thicker steel or go down, you know, tubing, this is inch tubing. I think then we're going to go for 2 inch, so we're going to have to redo it again. But we need to bend this a couple of more degrees to get a true 90 degree bend, and that's how you do it. Very, very simple. Just line that up against there. Whatever measurement you've got, take that away from 180, and that will give you your true angle. So if you bend it at 40, take whatever measurement you've got, and if it says 37, 34, whatever, you know you need to bend it that extra couple of degrees to get a true 90 degree bend. Very, very simple, and that's how you do it. It's so easy, so simple, and believe me, if you're doing anything with, like this wasn't expensive. If you're doing anything with metal or anything like that, you need these sort of tools. So it's not as if you have to spend hundreds on them, and you know you need them. And there we go. So that's how you do it. Sorted. The reason why it's very important is because when we put our first 90 degree bend here, if it's only 87 degrees bent, for example, when we come to do our second degree bend here, we're going to be way out. And we're going to have to force this a lot more, and then it won't be straight. It's going to be kicked slightly, and we want this bar to come straight out and straight across for maximum strengthness. And if one leg is slightly kicked than the other, a couple of things. One, if someone looks at it, it doesn't look very good. And two, you've lost all the strength. There's no point in you having it there, because the idea of this is for strength. So we want two vertical lines coming straight out here with a perfect 90 degrees or 180 degrees going back on itself, and we want it nice and strong. That's why we're doing it. That's why it's important to get your spring back angle correct. Right, I've just set up our bender. We've only got a couple of dies because they are very expensive, so if JD's out there want to send us a few more dies, we wouldn't say no, would we, Brian? No. So there we go. So I've set it up now. We're going to put the slightly bigger pipe in, the 2-inch pipe I believe we've got, and we're going to bend it our first 90. We're going to then check our spring angle. We have to tweak it a little bit. Then we're going to go to the car and get it bent, welded, tacked, sorted, all the usual. Boom. Right, we've got it all set up for our first bend. We've kind of been arguing a little bit on our first bend radius, but we'll see who's right in a minute. But what I really want to show you is just how easy this machine is and how it basically works. So Brian's going to bend it.
This is a JD square bender, and I'd like to say right now, I'd like to clear the air that I am a bend virgin, as opposed to Leon, where he's a professional bender.
Yeah, and difference between professional and an amateur. There it is.
I'm glad the concrete had a bit of time to sit.
I wouldn't say it's going to work yet. Anyway, what he's doing is he's essentially just sawing it. So we get a few degrees bend each time, roughly 5-6 degrees to bend each time, and then you just use it as a saw. And when you get to the end, now I'll show you this little bit of spring back, if we can see it here, when Brian bends it, like that, and then, see that came back about a degree.
I'll do it slower this time.
See that? Now, so what we need to do when we come to the end of the travel of the saw is we just move this pin across, which then sets the die at a slightly different angle. So I'll show you that now. How are you getting on? So now we come to the end of the travel, we move the die to the second pin, which essentially then brings this all the way back, or halfway back, as the case may be in this case, and it allows us to keep bending. So once we hit 90, we're going to have to do our spring back. 82.
I'll go easy now.
85. Sounds like Brian's wallet when he opens it. Good.
Yeah, well, at least I'm not too loose with the money.
Certainly not too fucking loose. Right, hold on. Stall the digger. Keep going. 88. 89. 90. 90 according to the gauge, but we're going to have to do the spring back value on it. So there we go.
To be fair, I'm quite proud because
and out of breath.
a little bit. I always wanted a bender like this, but you know, you always put it on the back foot, and now that I have it, I'd like to take this a moment to,
Oh fucking God, here we go.
Think about my Lifetime Achievement Award.
What, for being a bender? I could have told you that fucking years ago.
Yeah.
I'd give you, actually, anyone who wants to make a Lifetime Achiever Bender Award for Brian, let me know.
I actually don't mind that as long as it's comical, as long as it's, you know, you use a bit of ingenuity, and possibly it's made of car parts.
Lifetime Achievement Bender. Anyway, we're just going to do the spring back angle on this. I've showed that on the other part of the video, and I've done a separate video on doing spring back value, and we're going to see what it's like. Right, the reason why spring back angle is vitally important, we need to put another 3 degrees of bend on this, because we're only 87 degrees, even though we've put 90 on the dial. Because that extra 3 degrees, when you're talking of a long pole, it's only 3 degrees here, but when it goes to the rest of the car, it could be 8, 9, 10, 15 degrees at the other end of the car. So even though it's only 3 degrees here, it could be out over 10 degrees here, which is massive. So we need to kink this in another 3 degrees to get our true 90 here. Then we can work out our second bend. Right, we have the first bar on. It's just fortunately Brian welded in the wrong place. But, it doesn't matter. We're going to cut it off.
If you ever think that you're just going to tack it on, dream on. I just so annoyed. I just spent eyeing it up like an artist last night, just looking at it, because there's very few points of reference that you can actually measure anything of. So essentially, you're just using the tips of the fenders or the
fenders.
Okay.
Wings.
So to just eye it up, and so it looks right, you know. But of course.
What he's trying to say is he fucked up when I went home. That's what he's saying. That's essentially what he's saying. What we're going to do is we're going to lift this up slightly so our second bar is hitting the plate. That means that's the way I kind of had it envisioned in my head, so we get the full strength of the plate. And then yeah, we're just going to drink our tea first. Right, you can see what we're doing now. I wanted to actually box that section off. So in other words, come up with a flat plate and make a little box so you're working with a flat section, but Brian wanted to do it this way, so it is what it is. I just think a box section looks a bit neater, but it doesn't matter. You can see we've got our second bar in there now, so we're going to have, again, that's going to be removable. There's going to be 4 bolts on there to remove it, just like there is down there. Same on this one coming down here, but what I'm doing now is with this and these 2 little magnets, I want the 2 legs to come down evenly, so they're basically, it's not really a big deal, it's just to make it look a bit nicer, but they both finish at exactly the same point. And I've just measured off here and here, and that's the same, so I now know that my second bar needs to finish here and come up there. Then we're going to build the bottom one. We're also going to put a wedge in there and another wedge in there. This is going to be really strong, to the point where this is going to be too strong now. And what happens when you do this to a car, unfortunately, the damage goes further back. But it is what it is. These bash bars are kind of good, but they do obviously also have other issues as well. But you can see how we're looking there. We're looking good. Right, we haven't used it a lot, but we have used it a little bit with tacks on synergy mode. Brian's just done the 4 tacks there. What do you think about it on synergy mode?
I'm definitely coming around to it. But like, it's likely that I didn't know how to use it beforehand, or put it on the wrong program or something. But now I love it.
We've got used to it. Now, the thing with synergy mode is it does sound a little bit different to what you're normally used to. If you normally imagine sizzling bacon, when you're doing the synergy mode, it is slightly different. But I'll get to that in another.
Sometimes, you know, my gut tells me here the wire speed is not fast enough. But you know, it's just like anything you get first takes some time to get accustomed to it.
But it is welding absolutely lovely. So now we've got the 4 plates made there. We've got the holes drilled, same on that side, and we just tacked it in. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make the little standoff for there. Then we're going to come with the second bar. But as you can see, we're really getting there now. And then we're going to weld it all in and be good to go. Right, we've made one of these all by hand. I'm going to show you now how to cut these by hand with no special tools, just a grinder. And if you haven't got a grinder, well then you shouldn't be doing this work. Like, who doesn't have a grinder? So there we go, it fits lovely, and it's going to make it a lot stronger. So I
downloaded that app there about 3 weeks ago.
What, the grinder app?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone swiped left on you, did they? Was it right? Which is to reject you?
You were on that too.
Oh, did you see me? Did you see my profile? Oh, you didn't like my profile, did you, Brian? For fuck's sake.
Were you the one in the tutu?
Yeah.
I just don't know why there were so many people in front of you. But
well, it just is what it is. No. Oh. Oh, that's...
Is that a template, is it?
No. Right, so the easy way to make something like this, so you can butt it up to another piece of tube, essentially, without any special tools, you just need a grinder. So the first thing we need to do is, I'll just get this in the vise, so I've got a spare pair of hands. Right, all we need
3, 2, 1.
Right.
Go. What are we doing again?
All you need to do, very simple. Even an idiot can understand this, but fortunately not Ryan, but anyone else can understand this.
That's because I'm not an idiot.
No, you're a tit. What you need to do is find the centre.
At least I'm not a right tit.
You're a left ball bag.
That's why I always grab the left one.
What you got to do is you've got to get the centre of the pipe and come down each end. Now, this measurement might change slightly depending on what pipe you're butting up to. But what I'm going to do is, so I've just marked it down there, then I'm going to mark it 10 mil and put a cross on it. So we'll put this in here at a 45-degree angle, roughly. So if you see roughly, that pole is at a 45-degree angle. Then what I do is mark up 10 mil. So I've got my 10 mil mark there. Then with my grinder, I'm coming straight down with my grinder. That's all I'm going to do. Straight down, put my goggles on, and just come straight down. Put it, just right there. Again, roughly 45-degree angle. 10 mil for what I'm doing, but like I said, that might change for you. Straight down with the grinder again. From this side of the from this side. What you don't want to do, you don't want to come at the same angle with the grinder, because all you're going to do is chop it off square. I'm coming straight down with the grinder, like that. Right, you might want to move now.
That's why it was at the far side.
I know, but I was showing him the fucking angle.
Yeah.
You know? Jesus, cameraman. Now sometimes, what you might need to do is just angle these slightly, sometimes. It just depends on what you're actually doing. But you can see now, look at that.
Turn it. Wait, we'll get a better light. Yeah, fucking it.
Sometimes what you might need to do is just angle them slightly. Right, so what you have to do sometimes is just slightly bevel the corners there. But as you can see now, just 2 cuts, 45 degree within the vise, and look at that. That gives us the perfect amount to actually weld now.
And this being exaggerated.
What are you showing that for?
Oh, that's the first template that...
That's a template.
We didn't make a mistake.
No, it's called a template.
Yes, a template.
It's not a mistake, it's a template. So there we go. And then you can see you got a little gap, which is always nice to have, and weld around that. Lovely. And you cut it to some sort of length that you can actually work with once you've done the joint at the bottom. Get it to where you want it to be, wherever that happens to be. Draw a line now that hits the top bar, so I'm just going to do that. Right, so I've drawn that line, and now I'm going to do is just cut that straight down there, and then I'm just going to kick out a couple little dishes, and that'll fit perfectly. So let me just do that off camera and I'll show you. Once you drop it on the floor, once you've got it cut to length and the angle, you can see we've got the angle on it now, so it's just that angle. Put it on the pipe, but make sure you put it in the middle, so not to the side. Make sure it's in the middle like that, so I can't see it now. I'm going to go under here, and all I'm going to do, see if I can do it, I'm just going to get my marker pen, and I'm just going to take a little semicircle there, and a little semicircle here. Go back to the bench. Let me just mark these up better and I'll show you. Now with this is just take it slowly. So you can see that I've got a little semicircle there and a little semicircle there. I'm just going to get the grinder and I'm just going to notch out that just a little bit at a time. Test fit it. You might have to fit this 5 or 6 times, and then you just gradually take a little bit more out each time, and then you'll get an absolute perfect fit, because you don't want to take too much out. It's like everything. It's a lot easier to take away than it is to add. And then once I've done that a few times, I'll turn the camera back on, and that's our upright done. Right, it is done. All I've done is I've beveled the inside edge, because that, when you cut this, you need to bevel the inside edge because it will sit better. But you can see the shape we've got, so you can see that's the angle, and we've got just a little shape cut in there and the same in there, and just beveled the edge, and I'll show you now that that fits lovely. So we're just going to tack them in place there. There's that one, there's this one. You just see inside here. Ugh. It's got a little bit more fettling to do here, but you can see what we're basically aiming for. So a little bit of fettling here, but you can see just how nicely that fits with just a grinder, putting it in the vise, 45 degrees, bish bash bosh, Bob's your uncle. Right, it's like everything, you know, there's a lot of buttons. It's very simple, but you know, we have to get used to this type of welder.
I'd like to add that we're a very simple people as well.
Yeah.
You know what's awesome? It fills up the gaps really easy, you know, and it does no messing. It just does what it says on the tin. It's on 2 now.
It's on 2 now, yeah. Go for it. Like I said, well, I'll just let him finish that first. Because this is synergy mode, it might not sound what you are used to. So don't go off the sound, because it's synergy mode, and it does work slightly differently, but it does what it needs to do. It is amazeballs. Look at that, beautiful. What we're going to do is we're going to do a bit more weld on here, then we're going to bend the bottom bar, and then we're really close to getting this finished. I'm not going to go through it mad on this video, but to give you a rough idea how you work out all your bends. Most important thing is you need to start from the middle of whatever you're bending and work your way out to each end, essentially. But also bear in mind, depending on what bender you're using and depending on what die you are losing, in our case, from the start to the end of the bend, we lose 9 inches. So you have to count that into effectively when you're measuring your actual pipe. So what we've done is, we've marked it on our pipe.
Sometimes you want to get down and dirty. Just slide it in.
Hold on, hold it there, hold it there. Right, so we got our centre mark here, and we got our mark to our first bend, or the end of it, sorry. And then here we go, so we bend, so there's 9 inches. We're going to lose all that for our first bend, and the same with this. So just that's how you mark it up, but it all depends on your die, the thickness of your die and your pipe, to how much you lose in a bend. But you always have to count that in to effect. So there's our centre mark. Our first bend is here, and our second bend is here, and then it's going to go around that way. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. Right, there's a couple of things you need to do. Your first bend's always simple because it's just your first bend, you can't really go off, but we need to work off our first bend now. So what we need to do, first thing we need to do is get our level, and we put our level across. Now this is not set up yet, but we need to make sure our second 90 is on the same plane, it's not off to the side. So we just angle this up to its level. That's one thing we need to do. But the second thing we need to do, it depends on your machine might be different, but we have to be very careful of the preload. So at the minute, Brian has that. Oh, that's my level gone. Brian has that. Let me just line this up and I'll show you what I mean about preload. Right, so what we have to do is, once we've got the pipe level, so we know our second bend's in the same plane, this is the preload. Now, you can see my mark right there against, just put it there, against the book of this. When I pull this forward, look how much that's moved. In this particular case, it's moved over 1 inch. So what we do is, now you can add this measurement on, but like I said, different size dies, different pipes, different wall thicknesses, this will all change. So what we do is, once we get our preload, we keep the pipe a little bit loose and we push that back, lining up with air. That means then we know our bend's going to start there and we've taken all the preload out. Because otherwise, if you think you're going to bend it at that mark and then we try and bend it now, we're an inch and a half already, we're completely out. So it's very important to get your preload sorted and get your pipe level. Right, so we've got it level and we've got our preload set to 0 again, which is there.
And don't forget to set 0 your...
Oh, 0 the gauge out as well.
Yeah, just a little bit to the right.
0 gauge out, that's 0. We can now bend this second 90. And like I said, it looks like we haven't got a lot of pipe sticking out here, but when we bend that, this is going to basically shrink 9 inches away. So yeah, now we're all set up. We know we're level on our plane. We know we got our preload sorted, so our second bend is going to be dead level with this. And then we've left these legs too long on purpose because we're going to cut and butt them up to the 2 legs on there, so it's all going to be good. Unless Brian has just moved that again. No, he hasn't. We're okay. We have our pipe bent. Our legs are too long, but we knew it was going to be too long anyway. We did that on purpose. We put the front bumper back on because what we need to do is we're putting the bottom bar just at the same mark as the bumper for a couple of reasons. One, because he wants to put a sump guard on later and you can hook it up to this. We can also hook towing eyes up to this as well, and we'll have the full protection of the bumper then. So the bar's going to be at the top of the bumper and the bottom of the bumper, so it's going to be the full protection if you ever hit anything. So there we go. We've just got to work out a couple of angles coming down here, and then we're good to go. Look what 2 Muppets have managed to build in a shed with no door. Look at this beautiful piece of engineering. We haven't finished yet. It's all been welded. Brian did all that last night when I left. And look at it. It is really getting there. Brian is super happy.
I'm actually pretty happy now. I expected it to be heavier when I removed it off after being tacked. It's pretty light, you know?
Light and very, very strong. So if two Muppets in a shed can build this, believe me, people.
It's a half a shed.
Half a shed, yeah.
It's a half a shed put up, you know, by two other Muppets.
Yeah, and actually, if you want to know the different colours, why the walls are different colours, because this was from a bakery that was on fire.
Yeah.
So that's even the shed. Even the shed isn't the material the shed's made out of.
You know, those of you that are not in Ireland, like, you know, corrugated sheeting can be really expensive, you know, but like if you get it cheap and you're prepared to, you know, hoof off all the first installation, it can make a grand sidewall. Now I got new sheeting for the top of the roof, but the sidewall, it was good.
Yeah, so there we go. So look, if we can make this with, again, very basic tools, just welders, grinders and a bender, you know, anyone can do it. So we're just gonna, all we got to do now is we got to bring a pipe to come to meet the top of the radiator and the bottom of the radiator and tie in this engine mount. So we're going to do that today, and then hopefully by today it's going to be all finished, if not finished, very, very close to be finished.
It's worth saying, like, if you have two mates and they get together, like, the first couple of days is just like, you know, brainstorming, and nothing might actually happen, and then like everyone knows this, it all comes together in a matter of a day or so. But the main thing that takes up most of the time is the brainstorming, just to see how you're going to do it, or is it the best way, or going back over it again, you know. So
yeah, it just takes time, you know, figuring out where you're going to put your first bar. Once you've figured out where you put your first bar, you can work off that and everything, but your first bar is always kind of the hardest thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue, and I'll show you what we get done after that. I'm making some unusual notches in here for a radiator support bracket, and they're really, well, I made a bigger one and this was absolutely perfect. This got me shape. Once I got my shape, I've now just cut angles into it with the angle grinder so I can easily chop these teeth out, and I'll just quickly do that now. See if I can do that when I'm holding it. Might not be able to. You kind of get the idea like that, and then to get the shape really good, all you need is one of these tungsten bits. I can cut out that and get an absolute perfect shape. And you'll see just how easy this rips through. Watch this. I'm doing it one-handed. I can't do it one-handed. Let me turn off the camera. You can see what I've done on the opposite side, and then I'll show you. Right, so this is only roughly cut, and what we got to do is we got to fit it to this pipe. But just look, just how roughly, and it only cut roughly, but look at the nice, smooth, perfectly formed curve to fit into this. And you'll see what I've got to do now. I've got to cut these angles because I've got to bend it. If you look under here, we've just got way too big of a gap to weld. This is what it's going to look like when it's finished. You can just see I've cut the angles into here to bend this over to make it a funny shape, but it fits on the pipe. When you look underneath it, see there, a lot better. There's not, we can fill that with weld. So that's what I got to do. I'm just going to cut these angles in here, and what it's designed for, as you can see, we've done the bottom pipe, but the radiator here, move all the metal, we've made this bar so the radiator can fit on top. So what happens is this, just do this, if I can do it on camera, that goes on there, look at that, now there we go, that fits in there absolutely perfectly. We weld that on, and we've got two lower cups for the radiator to sit on, and once we make the top bar, it will meet up with the radiator. So that's all I'm doing, and as you can see, it's a nice gap, weld all that, two perfect radiator support mounts. And this is also helping the radiator, because this is going to get hit first before the radiator does. So we're making this car seriously strong and a lot better. Right, now, showed you them bars before. I've already showed you them bars. What I've been working on is the bottom bar. So we have the bottom bar in now. We have some 90D supports even. I've also made the special cups to fit the radiator in, so the radiator now fits nice and snugly in these. Easy to just sit down, and then we'll pick up the radiator from the top bar. So there's 2 support brackets there. The bottom bash bar is done. That will also help if the car lands heavy. This will protect the engine, and we're going to make our skid plate from this. We was originally going to do it from this, but now we're doing it from the lower bar. And all I got to do now is pick up the gearbox mount, which is just there, and do the top bar, which is just there, and then we are finished. But as you can see, it's looking well, it's looking nice, it's all nice and even. Look at that, it's looking good. Right, hopefully you'll feel sorry for me. Are you ready? Boom! It's snowing, and we've got no door. Great.
Yeah,
right, look what we've done. So we've left a bigger hole in the middle for the oil cooler to get in. We've still got a tee off from here to here.
Don't forget the future intercooler for my turbo build.
Yeah, and we've left enough room for that.
Yeah.
Also, we need to tie off the bonnet pins off here as well, but
I'm very dubious about this bonnet closing.
it'll close.
Yes, I used the word dubious now.
Said doobie. And there we go. Look at that. Looks like we know what we're doing. Right, just to shut Brian up and anyone else, as I said, I told you the bonnet would close.
Look at that, I'm surprised. Look at how just something nice.
So there we go.
I have to move them bonnet pins.
Oh yeah, but we'll adjust them with the bracket. But anyway, just as I told you, it will close. Right, I carefully planned the top and the bottom for the radiator, and I said to Brian before we started this, why don't you get an aluminium radiator? He's like, no, let's work with what we've got. Did you or did you not say that? Yes or no? Yes or no? No. Then I made some beautiful brackets as I showed you. Now what we've also done is we have strengthened this up here and here, put all the braces in there. Brian now, and obviously that's where we're putting the oil cooler, as you can see. So Brian's working on the oil cooler and all the fitment there. But then Brian sent me a picture last night saying, oh, look at this aluminium radiator that he's getting.
No, to be fair, you know, when you sit down and you know the gears go in your brain, come up with a new idea. And also
I came up with it like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Anyway, look, so we're getting a better radiator, and the best thing about the new radiator is it's actually smaller. So, but it's better. So you know, it'll actually only fill half the gap.
Look at the mark. I have it marked there and there. That's the width of it.
Oh, so it has it marked. So it's half the size, but obviously it's an alley radiator. It's a lot thicker. It's just better, even though it's half the size lengthways. So it gives us a little bit more room here, a little bit more access there, which is really good. And then we're just going to have to make some slightly different tabs coming off this bracket, but it's not going to be a big deal. So we've got all the bottom in there now. We've got the top in, and we've got the braces here. So now all we have to do is pick up the engine mounts, which we're going to do next. So the engine mounts, and then we are done, sorted. But look at that, just look at how
Mad Max it is.
Yeah, it looks like we know what we're doing. And beautiful. What you doing, Brian?
I'm doing overhead welding on this rally cap. God damn it, I love this welder. The synergy mode really gets it right. You know, normally I would be covered in sparks and splatter, just trying to get a tack or a bead on. It's going on pretty easy considering.
Boom. You see, this is why we are doing it. Look how much room we have once we've taken it off. So we've got the intercooler mounted, the oil cooler, it's not mounted there. We've got the sump guard mounted, and it's also tabbed on the bash bar, which I'll show you in a second. But as you can see, everything mounts from it. It is essentially all here. We made a new bar, which we'll show you. That's where we're going to put the engine mount to. Slightly tweaked a few things to make more room for the new radiator. So that's slightly.
By the way,
have you ordered it?
I ordered it last night.
Now I'm trying to get him to do the same because it just makes it even, but he says he doesn't want to.
Leon has a thing for symmetrical, everything.
Oh, to make it look nice and neat and proper.
Yeah, but like it has to be functional. If it's functional for me, it's good.
Yeah, but it still doesn't look right. Anyway,
no,
it looks horrible.
But
anyway, there you go. This is all the tabs on for the oil cooler. Got the tabs on the bottom for the sump guard. So once we've got it all welded up, we'll stick it back on. We'll show you the finished article. Okay, we've one more thing to do, obviously, apart from painting it and doing all that. Brian's finished completely welding it up. You can see this bottom bar here. We're making an engine mount. And what we got, this is from Group 4 Fabrication, so it's a rally part. It's actually the same engine mounts we used on my Mark 1. We're going to essentially make our own engine mount, which ties up to the plate he's made there. So this is a really solid bushing that's going to go on well to that bottom plate, and it's all going to tie in together. It's all going to be removable with bolts, but Brian's just going to put that on there now, and then we're going to work out exactly where this needs to go and what bars we need. So let's see how easy it is to put on, Brian.
Are you going to give me a hand?
I'm going to film.
Okay.
Filming's the hard part. We need to see. We need to.
Mentioned you're a bollocks.
But we need to see how easy this is to put on your own.
Yeah, but why do we have to do it now?
Oh, why not? That oil cooler is not going to be in the way, by the way, people.
You know, it's obviously going to be somewhere. Okay, I have got captive bolts now.
Do you know what we maybe should have done? We should have maybe put the bolt sticking out and then put the nuts on this end. What do you think?
I don't know, this is the first time I'm trying it. Okay, there's one.
Well, there we go. He's just going to put the other one on there now, and then essentially it's on. And that wasn't really too bad, to be honest.
Okay.
Right,
There
it's
is
on.
a bit of wriggling, but
Well, that's why we made the holes big on the outside, because there is a little bit of wriggling. But maybe what we should have done, thinking about it, rather than welding the captive nuts this end, we could have left the bolts sticking out so it would have stuck on. So that's something to bear in mind. It's not the end of the world. We could always change if we wanted to, but maybe that's what we'd do, just for easiness.
kind of on there, but
Easiness for one person.
more bolts needs.
Yeah, if we welded the bolts coming out, that would have been easy, because then you could have, even if, do you know what, even if we just welded the corners, so one here and one there, two on each, just to allow it to sit in like little dowel pins. That's what we should have done. So have two captive nuts and two bolts sticking out, because when you have four, especially when you have all of them like this, it's a bit awkward to get in. So even maybe just one out of each of them, that's perfect. Yeah. One out of each of them.
You could put a hole in the plate behind, and then like you say, a dowel.
Yeah. So we could put, and we can actually retrofit that little dowel pin. It's just a case of drilling a hole, welding it this side and putting it through. So that's actually, we could retrofit that little dowel pin. That might not be a bad idea. One on each. But there we go. It is on. Now what we got to do is work out this bar here, this big bar at the bottom. This is where we're going to tee off to our gearbox mount. This is what makes it quick and easy. 2 mil, and then Brian's going to be welding them 10 mil plates on there just with a swip of a button. Happy?
Sorta, yeah. For fuck's sake.
Oh, we got it on camera too! He melted the tip!
I didn't melt it. Wait. You should, whenever you get that happening, you should just wait a few minutes for it to cool down.
Oh, yes!
Are you what?
That's not the welder's fault, people. It's user error. You melted. I've got plenty of tips.
I don't want a tip. Now, there you go. Once it cools down, it goes back to its original size and then it pops out. At least that's what I think anyway.
I'm just saying, never happened to me.
Oh, yeah, it is. This is homemade now. This was
Really?
yeah. This was when I was really poor. So I haven't got rich since, like, but I keep saying that I'm like temporary fixing it, and then I'll buy a proper one, but it hasn't happened yet.
Anyway, you get the idea. From 2mm to 10mm with very, very quickly. I'll let him do that. I'm going to crack on with my bits. Look at that. Right, Brian, what I want you to do is I want you to put your tongue on that for me now, please.
I already put my finger on it, but then I realised there was a hole in it, so that's why my gloves are a bit shit, like so.
Put your tongue on it live on camera. Yeah.
No, you do that with like jalapenos or some sort of the peppers or something, but not molten metal.
Well, you can start a trend. Right, it's going in lovely. Brian's homemade press and that bottle jack that he stole from me.
I asked Leon not to film this because it's a bit dodgy. It's homemade. It's a homemade press that I should have thrown out years ago.
And you stole the jack from me, but anyway.
I didn't steal it. I reconned it.
We are now completely done, apart from prepping and painting, but the physical, and we've still got a few bits to weld up. But you can see we've completely custom made the engine mount there. That's now on. And all the bracketry and everything to go along with it. Sump guards, brackets for your oil cooler, didn't you? Brian made the brackets.
That's it, yeah.
And then we're just waiting for the radiator to come, and we only make a few more little brackets. But everything is now onto this. So you've got engine mounts, sump guards, oil coolers, radiators. But you can just see, you can't really appreciate just how gorgeous this is unless you're really beside it. But believe me, there's a hell of a lot of work. And if you think you can do this in a few hours, you're going to be mistaken, because believe me, it takes days. Trace this out or anything. It was kind of just going as we're building it as we're going. I had a rough idea to what it wanted to look like, and then things work, things don't work. For example, when we put this bar here, I still reckon he needs to bend this, but anyway, that's just me. We had to slightly bend this other one out because for the radio. So just little things like that that you think you've got right and you haven't. That's why it's always good just to tack everything in place, and it's easy just to cut a little tack and re-weld it, re-bend it, redo whatever you need to do. But you're always kind of chopping and changing, because this isn't a factory brought thing. This is not a thing you just buy, you have to make, you know, it just takes time. But it's done. It is done. We're getting a lot more used to this welder now. We're really enjoying it. And it is what it is. So look, Brian's now going to rub this down and paint it. Got a few other bits. We'll film as much as we can. But at the minute, that's it. So as always, hope it helps. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Don't forget, links up here, links down below. And most importantly, don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one. Sorted.